How's it going, you guys? It's Will here, and today we're going to take a look at NECA's Godzilla 1962. Oh yes, the infamous NECA Godzilla 1962. This is a figure that I really wanted to get my hands on ever since I found out that it was coming out. And I'll be honest, I was never really a fan of NECA's Godzillas before this one. I mean, yeah, they Godzilla 2014, but that figure only looked good because they had the actual 3D model from the movie. But their original Godzillas, they didn't look the best when it came to their sculpting. I mean, it all started with Godzilla 94. His sculpt looked really off to me. Like, I have Burning Godzilla here, which uses the same mold. It didn't do it for me. Like, the neck was way too tall. The body structure was all wrong for me. He stood too straight upright. I don't know, it just I just wasn't too crazy about it. And then, of course, they had Godzilla 84 come out, Godzilla 1984. That figure was just big disappointment for me because it had the whole weird head thing going on, and they fixed the head sculpt, but that's like all they fixed. And then, I'll be honest, Godzilla 1954 and 2001, GMK, that's when they started to take things a little more seriously. But then, once they started to come out with pictures of the prototype and the sculpting for 62 here, I was like, okay, wow, they're really trying to step their game up. They really want to compete with SH on this one. And then once we saw the full completed, fully painted prototype, I'm like, okay, I'm on board for this one. I am on board for this one. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know what it was. I don't know why there's been like this sudden interest in making Godzilla 1962 toys. We had one from SH released not too long ago. Then NECA's is starting to pop up everywhere. I think it's because, I have my assumption, I assume that's because the collectors and fans, they're really trying to get Godzilla 1962, but they don't want to pay a lot of money for an X Plus one. And of course, Bandai's Memorial Box one, that figure is really hard to come by, and when you do, it's like over $200, which is crazy. So these companies are starting to come in, let's give them 1962. So we got NECA, we got SH Monster Arts, and here we go, Godzilla 1962. I will agree, it is real nice to have a 1962 Godzilla in my collection finally. I'm sure a lot of you guys can agree as well. Just by looking at him for just certain angles, this figure looks incredible. Alright, real quick, we'll take a look at the box and then we'll get to this beauty right here. Now the box, I actually really dig the box. Before, NECA would package their figure in just a shitty little, blister pack, just like any other American toy packaging. But this box actually looks real nice. This box is very reminiscent to what they do for, like, their Ultimate figures. Like NECA's Ultimate Friday the 13th figures or Ultimate Pennywise figures. It looks really nice, and it opens right through here. Got more pictures of the figure there, and the window where the figure stays right in there. So that's the box right there, and should I keep it in the background? No, that'll be distracting. So we'll get the box out of here, put this guy front and center. Yeah, guys, the sculpting of this figure is just real incredible. All the way down to the nice details on the skin to really resemble that tree bark-like skin. Notice how the claws, the toes and the claws are painted. The Monster Arts one does not have that. So while the sculpt is very impressive, this Godzilla's paint job is just equally as impressive as well. As I just mentioned, they got the little details, the claws and the toes are indeed painted. And they look painted too, unlike the Monster Arts one. My favorite part about the paint job, though, is definitely the Godzilla spines back here. They're that nice classic bone white color. Makes it look real nice. And that color goes all the way down to the tip of the tail here. Another thing I really like about it is the inside of the mouth is also fully painted. Which is real nice touch. Godzilla's eyes are painted a nice black and yellow color, which reminds me of another figure that I have, which I'll pull out in just a little bit. But they are done really nice. They're not glass eyes like the Monster Arts one, but I think it looks just as good. Like, honestly, there's no mistake in this for Godzilla 1962. My favorite angle to look at this figure at is just, like, front on. Like, just front on. I feel like that's where you get the nice look of Godzilla 62 the most. Either that or at like an angle to really capture the body structure. because Godzilla 62 had a very distinct body structure. I'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, so for articulation, it's a NECA figure, so it has quite a bit. My favorite part is having the mouth open and close. I think that's a real nice touch. You don't see that with a lot of Godzilla figures. Head has some articulation in it, can move side to side, can kind of go up and down, not a lot though. The neck has articulation in it as well. A little articulation in the waist here. A little. The joints are pretty stiff, so I get kind of scared messing with it because I don't want to break them. Because this figure, it's pretty heavy. That was one thing that impressed me about this figure, is he's a pretty hefty figure, and he's pretty hard as well. He's not squishy like the Bandai vinyls. So as more articulation, he has articulation in the arms and kind of go up and down, kind of come out a little bit. So a joint in the elbow, a bend joint. The hands can swivel, and they do have some bend joints, but it's really, really stiff. And I do not want to break this figure, especially for how beautifully sculpted he is. And the best part about oh wait, I forgot about the legs, duh. The legs can go up and down, kind of go in and out a little bit. At the knee, they can swivel. And the feet can also swivel as well. Which is a good or a bad thing. You know, it's a bad thing because they can swivel a little too much and then it can look misaligned, which I do not like. But it's good to have all the articulation. But the best part about the articulation, though, is definitely in the tail. The tail is fully posable. It's not a wire tail, but there are several ball joints in the tail, which really gives it nice articulation, which I love. So you can pose Godzilla's tail in several different ways. And if you need shelf space, you can put it all the way up and pull a Bandai Creation, get the curved tail to fit them on yourself. I like to have mine kind of like have it up and curved to the side. That's how I like to display mine. So here we have Godzilla 62 scaled up with a few other Godzilla figures. At the left here, we have my least favorite figure in my entire Godzilla collection, the SH Monster Arts Godzilla 64. This figure just has terrible quality control issues. Like the head likes to pop off a lot, the left arm pops off too much, and he's just very, very tiny. Very, very tiny. And then to the right here, we have the Memorial Box Bandai Godzilla 1965. And as you can see, they're close to the same size. NECA's a little bit taller. But that's what I meant. Like this figure, when I first saw him, the size and just the weight of this figure really, really impressed me. He fits, I would say he's a little taller than your basic Bandai, but he's pretty good size. A pretty good size indeed, if you ask me. A few more size comparisons. Right here we have Ultraman Mebius. And I actually really like how this looks. I like Godzilla to be a little taller than the Ultraman, but, you know, to have a lot more body mass, just in comparison. That actually looks real nice. So that's Godzilla with the Ultraman here. And this figure, you guys should recognize this. This is my X Plus USA Godzilla 1964, you know, based on the movie Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster. This figure has seen a lot of wear and tear throughout the years, but he's still around. And as you can see, these figures, they look pretty similar. Like, when I first saw this figure, like, when I first, like, picked it up, took it out of the package, it really reminded me of the X Plus one here, right here. And I've had this figure forever, so this figure really reminds me of this figure. And they feel very, very similar. Of course, this guy is hard as well, but this guy is just a pure statue, no articulation. Unlike the NECA 62 here, which is, you know, full of a lot of articulation. So yeah, this is just really to compare, you know, 64 and 62 right here. As you guys heard me mention earlier, Godzilla 62 had a very distinct body shape. Like, he was very, wide. Like, he wasn't bulky, like, muscular bulky, but he was very, like, wide bulky. Like, the body shape of 62 was very distinct. And he didn't fully stand upright, straight like 64 did, but he kind of had a little bit of a kind of a hunch. Not like super hunched over like a T-Rex would be, but he had somewhat of a hunch. I think that's where the Monster Arts sculpt really shows that off. But, you know, other than that, you know, NECA's figure is just incredibly nicely done. So, I guess, you know, I have a question for you guys. Which Godzilla suit do you prefer, 62 or 64? Me, personally, I like 64. It's slightly better, but, you know, figure-wise, you know, both of them are solid representations right here. One thing I forgot to show off here was the atomic breath piece that NECA includes with this figure. And it actually looks pretty nice. It looks like a nice cloud of smoke. Which, you know, the early Godzilla movies, you know, the atomic breath really did look like smoke. So this figure does a pretty good job. And if you look, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it, but inside Godzilla's mouth, there is a hole where you stick it in. And just pop it in. Just like that. You gotta be careful though, because, you know, his head does kind of go down when the effect part is in. But, you know, it is nice that they do include this with it. And it's nice where it's not like Monster Arts where you gotta have like a whole freaking stand for your stuff, which is a hassle. But, you know, it is nice that they do include this with your figure. One last thing I think you guys should be aware of, and it really hurts me to say this, but you know how SH Monster Arts, you know how their figure sometimes have their defects? You know, they either have, you know, derpy painted eyes, or, you know, derpy jaws, or their parts fall off. Unfortunately, NECA's, their figures can have their defects as well. I actually do own 2 of these figures. I have 2 NECA Godzilla 1962s. And, well, this one right here that you look in front of you, this figure I picked up at one of my comic book shops. However, the left arm here is from my second figure. I'll pull that one out in a second. Let me close this guy's jaw so you guys can see what I mean. So right here, I have my second Godzilla 62. As you can see, this figure is pretty derpy looking. This figure is pretty derpy looking. His jaw doesn't exactly close. It's really off center. And, however, when I first got this figure, he came with 2 left shoulder pieces. As you can see, I switched the arms on these 2. I switched the left arms. This Godzilla here has, look at this shoulder piece. Look how it's facing. And look at this one here. They're the same. This Godzilla came with 2 of the same shoulder pieces. That's why his arm looks all messed up. So I would say just be careful when you're buying these figures. If you can get it at a comic book shop, you can really study it. I would recommend doing that. Or if you're buying online like I did this one, then I would say hold on to your receipts and definitely look at the return policy because, yeah, you don't want your figure to look like this one. So I would say just be careful with your figures. Just keep an eye out, okay? Really study them. So yeah, like I said, this Godzilla I bought from my local comic book shop, and I studied the jaw. The jaw looked to be in place. However, it had the weird arm thing going on. Then I looked at the other one, and then I just switched out the 2 arms to make it look real nice. So definitely keep that in mind, you guys. But other than that, Godzilla 1962 by NECA, he is an incredible figure. Like, for the money, you're getting a real nice representation of the King Goji suit, and if you're debating between this or SH Monster Arts, I would say if you're a diehard fan, get them both. But if you just want Godzilla 62 in your collection, then definitely go for a NECA. Because for the money, you're getting yourself a pretty nice looking figure. Alrighty guys, I think I rambled on long enough about this figure. So if you guys haven't picked them up yet, definitely do so. You know, I would recommend checking your comic book shops first. But if your only choice is get them online, do so. But keep an eye on the return policy. Alrighty guys, I'll see you in the next Godzilla review, and thank you for watching. Keep your kaiju collections going, you guys. Never stop. Alright guys, I'll see you in the next one.